All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Thinking Outside the Box session here at InFocus. Excited about day 3 of InFocus for the virtual conference. Just by way of introduction, my name is Jerry Van Dalen. I'll talk a little bit more about who I am and my background in just a minute or so. But again, before we get kicked off, I wanted to give about a minute for everybody to join the session. Make sure you guys are hearing me okay, seeing me okay, looking at my screen and some of the slides that we'll be covering. Today's conversation is going to be focused on exploring different ways that JD Edwards manufacturers and distributors are implementing e-commerce strategies that are successful. Excited for what we've got today. And with that said, I'll go ahead and dive right in. Just again, by way of introduction, I'm an account executive with SmarterCommerce for about 7 years now. I've been helping, partnering, guiding JD Edwards organizations in how they launch successful e-commerce retail and payment initiatives. Just a little bit of background on who we are as an organization and why we're able to speak into this particular topic. SmarterCommerce has been around for close to 30 years at this point. All 30 of those years we have operated in the JD Edwards space as a partner. We have implemented, done training, developed custom projects for JD Edwards customers, again, for about 30 years at this point. Along with our SmarterCommerce product line and our consulting service, we've completed well over 500 projects in the JD Edwards space. I'm a remote worker, but we're corporately based in South Florida in the Miami area, and we also have a development office in San Jose, Costa Rica. And as mentioned, the reason why our company is passionate about this topic of e-commerce is because for 20 years, we've been partnering with JD Edwards organizations and helping them launch successful projects in the e-commerce space, primarily by uniting e-commerce platforms with JD Edwards into one simple automated system. And that's what we call SmarterCommerce. Again, over 20 years, what we came to realize is that a really common challenge that a lot of tech and business leaders had in the industry when they were trying to launch e-commerce projects focused around a lack of connection. Now, when we say lack of connection, what we're talking about is a lack of connection between your ERP and the e-commerce platform that you're trying to launch. Ultimately, this can lead to tech and business leaders, finance leaders feeling overwhelmed because you've got this huge e-commerce project, but you don't feel like you have the tools or solutions to succeed. And then at the same time, when you try and figure out how to integrate these e-commerce platforms with JD Edwards, you end up with a pretty high bill, right? It can be a very complicated, very expensive process. And so that's really what drove the founding ethos of SmarterCommerce, right? At the core of who we are, we believe that businesses deserve an e-commerce platform that fully connects with JD Edwards so that we can empower your team to conquer the complexity of B2B e-commerce and be able to focus on growth. That's really at the heart of what we're going to be talking about and exploring in today's session. Just for a quick reference, these are some of our customers. These are all JD Edwards organizations, many of which have partnered with us and at one point found themselves overwhelmed by this huge e-commerce project that was before them, frustrated that they really couldn't find a partner that understood JD Edwards, that integrated and connected with JD Edwards. But after partnering with SmarterCommerce, they've been able to launch successful commerce initiatives and become an industry leader in their respective space. Before we dive into the meat of potatoes of today's session, I just want to clarify what exactly is SmarterCommerce. I think the easiest way to summarize it in just about a minute, we like to say that SmarterCommerce is actually a family of solutions that help companies, specifically JD Edwards organizations, unite commerce, payments, and retail into one simple automated system, again, that connects with JD Edwards. We've got solutions or product pillars in the space of retail, payment processing, sales tax automation, call center management, and then really where a lot of our experience in the e-commerce space comes from is because we've developed our own B2B and B2C digital commerce platform that connects on a real-time basis with JD Edwards. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into our agenda for this afternoon. I want to pause for just a minute, ensure that everybody is hearing me just fine. I want to invite you guys to interact with me primarily through your chat box. If you do have a question or comment that you want to add to the discussion today, maybe something that I said was not clear, or you have a question that you want to pose to myself or my co-host as well, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the chat box. I'd love to interact with you. We love taking questions. We'll have a few minutes towards the end of today's session to address those questions. So with that said, this is what our agenda is going to look like today. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about what exactly is digital commerce. Seems like a no-brainer, but there's a little bit more to that than that we might take at face value. From there, we'll transition and discuss some of the unique challenges that face B2B organizations. That is to say, JD Edwards organizations that are manufacturers or distributors. What are the key challenges that those organizations face as they try and launch successful e-commerce strategies? From there, we'll cover 3 examples of different JD Edwards organizations representing different industries and how they have been able to craft a unique strategy towards becoming successful in e-commerce, and sort of try and understand some of the pieces of that formula. And then from there, we'll sort of wrap up some of our thoughts in some conclusions around how your organization can deliver a winning e-commerce strategy. Excellent. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's start with a really basic question. What is digital commerce? You know, I found a really helpful definition from Gartner. And Gartner defines digital commerce as the people, processes, and technologies that enable your customers to purchase goods and services through an interactive and self-service experience. The reason why I really like this definition from Gartner is because it puts a focus on the customer experience, not just at the moment of order entry, but along all the touch points of the buying journey. What this means is that the focus of a digital commerce platform shouldn't just be on the efficiencies or the look and feel, but instead it should be prioritizing the customer experience. Now, I think at this point in time, what a digital commerce experience looks like and what a good customer experience looks like on a digital commerce platform is pretty intuitive. By way of an anecdotal example, just the other day, you know, we've got a new baby, at least in my house, and this baby's pacifier kept falling out. My son's pacifier kept falling out. And so I had a problem. I needed to find a way to keep the pacifier from falling to the ground and having to wash it every time. So what did I do? I did what most of us do, right? I went to Amazon.com and I typed in baby pacifier holder clip, whatever that means. And Amazon took that and interpreted it, the search query, and then gave me a result with 10 million different products, you know, sponsored products at the top, highly rated products at the top. And I went ahead and found a product that looked kind of interesting. I thought it was a good value, had the kind of ratings that I thought were reasonable for that product. I put it in the shopping cart and then I checked out. And this experience was so seamless. It was over in about 60 seconds. How easy could that be? I put in a search term, Amazon gave me an intelligent search result, presented me with helpful product information, and the process to check out was so easy. Probably everybody on this session has done this dozens of times, if not 1 or twice today. So this is what digital commerce looks like, and it's easy, right? So why can't B2B organizations just do the exact same thing? Well, the answer to the question is no, it's not easy, Jerry. B2B organizations, manufacturers and distributors are very complicated organizations, and their e-commerce requirements are in the same way rather complex compared to business to consumer requirements. So just to kind of compare what some of those differences are, I've sort of assembled 2 columns here. On the left-hand side, you have a column representing B2B e-commerce requirements. And then on the right-hand side, you have me represented taking care of my kid, right? I'm a consumer. I'm focused on buying products for my household, and I'm the end user of these products. B2B products tend to be very complicated in how they're built out. There's typically many different sizes to the product, maybe different units of measure, different ratings that need to be communicated to the buyers. There's configuration type requirements. You have to determine if these products are compatible with previous products purchased by that organization. The list goes on. B2B products can be very complicated. In comparison, B2C products are pretty simple. Additionally, B2C relationships often have a very long history. Sometimes B2B relationships, you know, outdate somebody's time at an organization. It's not uncommon for B2B relationships to be 5, 10, 15 years long. Compared to consumer relationships, they tend to be pretty short, right? Consumer relationships, like my relationship with the Amazon vendor, was about 20 seconds long. I don't know who that vendor was. I just found their product, thought it was the best item, and then went ahead and bought it. B2B commerce is totally different, right? There's a very long, often complicated history on a customer by customer basis. And then the pricing is also different. B2B pricing can vary based on the category of customer, how often they purchase, how long they've been a customer. Maybe different pricing structures apply towards different industries. There might be volume breaks, discounts that are especially added to certain priority customers. The list goes on. Sometimes B2B pricing can be so complicated that every individual customer in a B2B organization has their own individual pricing that has been negotiated. And that's so different from the world of B2C pricing. It's pretty straightforward. Usually B2C pricing is unidimensional. Now there's certainly a lot of theory and calculation that goes into setting a price in the B2C space, but it's pretty much one price for most consumers. Those are some of the key differences. And as we kind of continue and explore more, just keep in mind, these differences point at some of the reasons why it's challenging for B2B organizations to realize successful e-commerce strategies. Additionally, usually in a B2B organization, you've got a lot of different departments that are involved in the decision. Maybe you have one person who identifies the need for the product, another person finds the product, another person approves the purchase and actually performs the sales order, if you will, and then somebody in accounting receives that invoice and has to actually pay that invoice. It's a lot of different departments and a lot of networking that has to go on for a typical B2B purchase. Compare that with a B2C purchase. I got on Amazon. I didn't ask anybody about what I thought. It was a pretty small decision, and I just went ahead and completed that transaction. Additionally, B2B e-commerce requirements typically need to allow for robust information needs. Again, B2B customers are complex. They typically have to know a lot of information about a product before they feel comfortable completing a transaction. Totally different from the space of B2C. I saw a couple of images, looked like it worked. I saw the ratings, right? They were like above 4.5, and I just went ahead and finished the transaction. No big deal. Additionally, B2B customers also tend to have very extensive customer support needs. It's not uncommon for B2B customers to be picking up the phone and asking very specific, even technical questions about a product before they feel comfortable completing that transaction. They want to know technical specifications, the results of tests, maybe access to MSDS information, so on and so forth. Again, very different from a B2C requirement. It's not the norm for consumers to need to interact with customer support in order for them to complete a transaction. And then the last item here, which I think is very key, has to do with how e-commerce as a sales channel interacts with some of the other existing sales channels in the B2B mix. Now, most of us work in organizations that are manufacturers, distributors. We know what the B2B landscape looks like, and you know that your organization receives sales transactions from many different channels. Maybe you've got sales representatives out in the field. Many of them have extensive product knowledge and long history of relationship with customers. Maybe you've got an EDI process where some of the big box stores or much larger complex customers just EDI orders in there. Maybe you're still receiving orders via fax or even email. The list goes on. When a B2B organization is launching a digital commerce strategy, a digital commerce platform, it has to be aware of how that new sales channel, that new e-commerce platform interacts with all of the other existing sales channels. It's common in B2B organizations for an e-commerce channel to be developed, and then all of the other sales channels, for example, the sales representatives, to see that e-commerce channel as a threat, thinking, hey, I've been doing business with this customer for 5 years. I've earned their trust, and they purchase only from me, and obviously that impacts my commission. And now this e-commerce channel is going to come in and automate the whole thing. I'm going to lose that revenue stream. And so B2B organizations need to be very cognizant of how this new e-commerce strategy is going to affect and how it's going to synergize with some of the existing channels. And obviously, this is very different from the B2C space. There's been a lot of buzz about omni-channel in the B2C space, but for the most part, you're either talking about a retail sales channel or a digital sales channel, and that's pretty much it. Suffice to say, there's a lot of differences between the B2B e-commerce world and the B2C e-commerce world. Hopefully, some of these differences have helped the audience appreciate some of the complexity in the B2B space. What I've come to realize, and what our organization has come to realize, that is a lot of these challenges really boil down to two major categories. The first is that B2B organizations interested in launching a digital commerce strategy need to find a solution, a platform, a partner that is going to help them simplify the complexity of their business to be able to provide a good customer experience. It's no secret, your company, your JD Edwards is complex, and that's okay. That's the nature of B2B business. However, if you're going to launch an e-commerce strategy, you have to make sure that all of that complexity is simplified for the sake of your customer. Some of the examples would be, you've got a lot of different product options. Maybe you're only presenting specific product options to your customers. You have a very complex pricing structure for your customers. They're not really interested in how you got to your pricing calculation. They just want to make sure that whatever pricing they're getting is the best pricing, and it's the negotiated pricing for their relationship. The same goes for inventory commitment. There may be a lot of business logic and a lot of business rules in the back end in JD Edwards to determine what exactly is available inventory. But from the customer perspective, they don't want to see all of that complexity. They want to have that complexity simplified for them through an e-commerce platform. The other major challenge that we see a lot of B2B organizations face when they're trying to launch e-commerce strategies focuses on a unified process to manage information. Any e-commerce platform is going to take loads and loads of information to make it successful. And this information can be anything from e-commerce content, meaning images, e-commerce, the product images for an e-commerce platform, documents that are related to those products. I mentioned MSDS before. If you've got catalogs that you have to manage, the interrelationship between these catalogs, how you want to structure your search terms, the list kind of goes on, right? Not to mention some of the other categories of information that we've already mentioned, such as pricing, inventory rules, order status, the list goes on. The point is, there's a lot of information that goes into a successful B2B e-commerce platform. And it's critical in order for your team to be successful that you find a streamlined, simplified way to manage all that information, to organize all that information. So again, these are some of the challenges that we see a lot of B2B organizations face when they're interested in launching an e-commerce platform. Unfortunately, what we see in the marketplace today is that a lot of B2B organizations feel the urgency to launch an e-commerce platform, and they're right? I mean, we know that e-commerce is pretty much ubiquitous in the consumer space, and it's just a matter of time before the majority of B2B organizations launch e-commerce platforms. We've seen that done successfully many, many times. Again, what we see many times are JD Edwards organizations interested in e-commerce, but they don't make a best decision when it comes to a platform or when it comes to a strategy. And oftentimes what this leads to, not recognizing or simplifying these complexities, it often leads to what we call a subpar customer experience, meaning that when customers log on to this site for the first time, they begin to experience things that really don't line up with the relationship that they previously had with this organization. And so we did, picked up some research that was really helpful done by Sapio that interviewed over 1,000 B2B buyers. These are essentially your customers who are purchasing from you on a regular basis, and asked them, hey, how is it that B2B e-commerce experiences fall short these days? And their insight was really helpful. 53% of them, that's over half of B2B buyers, mentioned that, hey, sometimes I go to the e-commerce platform and I can't find something if it's not in stock. Meaning I found the product I wanted, but it's just not available. It's out of stock. Almost half of B2B buyers mentioned that, hey, I was on the e-commerce website and I found some information that was incorrect or missing. So you know what I did? I picked up the phone and I called customer service. Again, half of those B2B buyers would agree that they often find the order status information on the e-commerce website. They find it to be incorrect. And then again, nearly half of them would also say that they often find product information that's incorrect. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that B2B commerce is difficult. And a lot of the challenges that B2B organizations has to do with, again, being able to present reliable information to your customers, being able to simplify that complexity for your customers, and then providing that that optimal customer experience. So Ironically, a lot of JD Edwards organizations get into the e-commerce space to help drive some efficiencies around customers placing orders. The reality is that if they don't make the right decision for a platform, if they don't make the right partner decision, what's going to happen at the end of the day is that customers are going to pick up the phone and call customer service because they know that customer service is going to have the single source of the truth instead of the e-commerce website when they find out that it has inconsistencies. So we're still left with this question, right? Maybe the question that we're trying to answer today. How is it that JD Edwards manufacturers and distributors can launch a successful e-commerce strategy? Jerry, you've already told us about all the difficulties. You've told us about the challenges. You've told us about how B2B e-commerce is much harder than launching B2C commerce, some of the common challenges that we face. So then how is it that we can launch a successful strategy? Well, certainly there's multiple layers to this answer, but what we have come to find out here at SmarterCommerce over the course of 20 years in helping JD Edwards companies launch successful commerce strategies is that it really boils down to prioritizing the customer experience. Now, before you log off and say, all right, Jerry, that's really just one phrase answer to this complex problem, hear me out. We're obviously going to peel that back a little bit, okay? Once again, after helping JD Edwards customers for 20 years navigate this complex and challenging space of B2B commerce, what we came to find out is that the key to providing that outstanding customer experience that we're talking about prioritizing, the key to providing that is having one single source of the truth. That's the foundation. That's the starting point. Now, somebody in the audience might ask, all right, Jerry, what do you mean a single source of the truth? Well, when we say one source of the truth, we're talking about one source of the truth when it comes to customer information, one source of the truth when it comes to inventory, pricing, ordering, payment, reporting information. One source of the truth. It means you're not replicating this data in multiple platforms and then trying to reconcile them. Now, what we came to find out is that you already have this single source of the truth inside of JD Edwards. So what we recommend, what SmarterCommerce does, is that we leverage SmarterCommerce as the principal solution for that business data and that business process. JD Edwards is the source of truth for all of that information. Now, if anybody in the audience is familiar with e-commerce, you know, hey, Jerry, there's a lot of enriched content that JD Edwards doesn't really manage well, but you still need for e-commerce. And in that case, what SmarterCommerce does is that we step in and we help you manage all of that information. But if your customers are looking for that outstanding customer experience, they need to be sure 100% of the time that the information that they're interacting with is reliable and trustworthy. And the key to doing that is by connecting that e-commerce platform to JD Edwards. Now, when you have a JD Edwards connected platform, that does two things for your organization. Number one, it radically limits the complexity for your commerce operations. See, what will happen typically is that a JD Edwards organization will go out to the marketplace, they'll find a great e-commerce platform, what I'll call a mainstream e-commerce platform that doesn't natively connect with JD Edwards, and they'll do two things. Number one, they'll develop all kinds of custom scripts to batch information back from JD Edwards to the e-commerce process, replicating that information once a day, once every 6 hours, so on. Or they'll try and develop a custom integration between this mainstream e-commerce platform and JD Edwards. And both of those approaches can involve a lot of complexity. And at the end of the day, it's the customer experience that suffers. For example, if you're batching information back and forth, it means that your inventory information isn't actually real time. It isn't actually accurate. There's a delay of perhaps 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever the case might be. Ultimately, this opens up the opportunity for a customer to be disappointed. When they place an order, they think there's inventory available, and then they get a phone call 4 hours later from customer service saying, hey, I know you really wanted to order these products. They're actually not available. Well, guess what? You've either frustrated a customer and they're just going to call customer service next time, or they're going to move on to a competitor. That's the reality for a lot of JD Edwards organizations these days. So by using an e-commerce platform that has real-time connectivity and real-time integration to JD Edwards, you totally eliminate any of that potential for customer disappointment. Again, you limit the complexity of what commerce looks like for your organization. And then number two, when you use a JD Edwards integrated e-commerce platform, you're also empowering your sales team, your marketing team to manage and optimize the customer experience. Your sales and marketing can focus on making the e-commerce platform the best customer experience possible, instead of focusing on managing the complexity of an integration or trying to make up for some of the negative customer experiences that your customers may be facing. So once again, this approach has been developed over the last 20 years. Our organization has developed a platform that does exactly this. And through our platform, we've been able to partner with many dozens, really, of JD Edwards organizations that have stepped into the B2B e-commerce space. So what I want to do right now is go over an example, specifically 3 examples of JD Edwards organizations that have succeeded with e-commerce. And this is really the heart of our session today, right? The goal here is to be able to think outside the box. There's no one way of doing B2B e-commerce. And in some sense, what you'll realize over the next few minutes is that each one of these organizations has taken a little bit of a different twist in terms of what a B2B e-commerce strategy looks like for them. Why? Because their industries are different, because their customer needs are different. If we're prioritizing the customer experience, then B2B e-commerce can be as varied as what your actual customer base may look like. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. As we do that, I do want to once again remind you guys, man, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like for us to kind of review towards today, at the end of today's session, we'll have some time to kind of discuss those. I'd love to get feedback from the audience. So the first customer I want to go over is an organization called Linde. They manufacture and distribute industrial gases that are used in engineering type applications. Very large organization, over $25 billion in annual revenue, and they had a need. Number one, they had a digital commerce website that was really clunky, really wasn't working for them, wasn't really integrated with JD Edwards. And at the same time, they had about 300 physical retail stores that were using a highly modified JD Edwards sales order entry screen as their point of sale interface. Now, maybe some of the eyes in the audience are rolling their eyes, right? But this is where Linde found themselves. They came to SmarterCommerce and said, hey, look, we got to redo this website. We have to launch something that's really intuitive, that feels good for the customer, and we have to leverage an omni-channel strategy. We have to find a way for the customers to be able to order online and pick up in the store, or be online and select a store to shop from and then look at inventory information at the store level. And after partnering with SmarterCommerce, that's exactly what we did. We understood what the needs of the customer were, and we prioritized the customer experience. Linde also has a unique requirement for customers to be able to manage their cylinder rentals, like where they store gases. They can do that online and in the store, again, using one source of the truth in JD Edwards. And then they've also allowed for customers to log on to this e-commerce platform and pay invoices, so that even if they don't purchase on the e-commerce store on a routine basis, they can still log on, look at invoices, and then make payments. Couple of key metrics to share here. Again, Linde's got about 300 stores across the US that are running SmarterCommerce retail, again, to leverage that omni-channel strategy with e-commerce. They've got over 100,000 products, individual discrete SKUs on this website. And they've also got over 100,000 customers on the website as well. So here's what the actual website looks like. I invite anybody from the audience, go and visit it, lindedirect.com. There's nothing to hide here. You can create an account, shop, so on and so forth. You'll notice here that at the top, I've identified myself under a certain zip code, and SmarterCommerce has determined that this is actually the closest physical location to me. So if I want to purchase any products near, to be picked up at a store, it's automatically going to be routed to this store. So for example, if I'm here and I'm interested in buying some welding and cutting equipment, I'll start navigating and sort of click down through several catalogs and then finally get to a product that I'm interested in buying. Again, we're talking about a very similar Amazon-like experience that's easy to navigate. At this point in the process, everybody's familiar with e-commerce platforms. Everybody's familiar with the basic rules, right? You got your homepage, you got your catalogs, you have your search bar. You can click through and navigate to a product that you're interested in buying. And this product in particular, the ProStar Avenger welder kit or whatever. Hey, I'm not a welder. I don't know very much about this product, but I've got plenty of information on this page to inform me as to the technical details of the product. And I want to highlight a couple of things here. Number one, this pricing right here, $415, is coming straight from JD Edwards advanced pricing. That's that real-time connectivity. Now, right now I haven't logged in, but if I'm a small business owner and I have preferential pricing with Lindy, the moment I log in, that 415 is going to readjust to whatever the advanced pricing calculation is for me. That's the personalized pricing. I want to know what my pricing is, and I don't want to get anybody else's pricing. This platform is doing that for me. You can also see here that the website is informing me that this product is in stock at the store that I'm shopping for right here in South Carolina. And it's also in stock if I want to go ahead and pick it up. So if I make the decision to pick it up in store, I merely click that, and then I can walk through a very seamless checkout process to pick that item up in store. What am I communicating here, guys? The key is understanding what your customer requirements are. Lindy understood that their customer needs are to be able to go on an e-commerce website that's easy to navigate, find product, pick it up in the store, and continue their day. And that's what it boils down to. That's the strategy that Lindy was able to develop. Again, highlighting here the prioritization of the need for the customer. Another great example is an organization called Morgan Olson. They're part of the J.B. Poindexter company, family of companies, if you will. They manufacture walk-in step vans. These are kind of the ubiquitous big box vans that all of us are familiar with, probably a few of them zipping around our neighborhood today, delivering FedEx, UPS, or Amazon products. And they had a need, right? Their customers, some of these very large organizations, food trucks, whoever it might be, they needed to find a way to order parts. Now, obviously, if you're dealing with vehicles that have a lot of different kinds of configurations, you need to be absolutely confident as a customer. You got to be totally confident that when you buy a part for your vehicle, it's going to be totally compatible with your vehicle. We've all been there, right? Where you think you buy the right replacement part for your car, for your lawnmower, for whatever it is, and then it comes in the mail and it's the wrong one. Happened to me the other day with a carburetor for my lawnmower. It's frustrating. Now, if it's frustrating for a consumer, imagine for a B2B organization that relies on every single one of their vehicles to make deliveries on time and quickly. It's absolutely critical. Morgan Olson realized that it was critical for their customers to find the right part and to ensure that that part was compatible with their vehicle. So what they did is they developed a search structure that allows their customers to go to morganolsonparts.com and to type in and insert the actual vehicle identification number, the VIN number for their vehicle, hit the search button, and then get a result of parts that are compatible with their specific vehicle. This is one of the search structures that they developed. We also had product name or product. You can search by product name or part number, unit number, VMRS code, and the list kind of goes on. But the key here is that Morgan Olson knew, hey, it's important for our customers to be fully confident that the parts that they're purchasing are compatible with their vehicle. So here's a second example. Anybody today can go to morganolsonparts.com and you can buy yourself some replacement parts if you want. This is what the homepage looks like. You've got a customer here. I've sort of found a VIN number, a dummy VIN number, if you will, and you'll see here there's a ton of different VIN numbers, right? None of these really correspond to my vehicle, so I'll type in my VIN number. I'll hit the search bar. And then I'll get a search result specific for my vehicle. And it tells me all kinds of information, right? This is the unit number, the make, the year, the list goes on. And I can verify, hey, yeah, this is totally my vehicle. That's what I want to purchase for. And once I click in there, I can begin viewing parts that are specifically compatible to my vehicle. What does this mean? This means that as a B2B organization, I know that this is reliable information. I'm trusting that it's coming directly from JD Edwards, and that compatibility is verifiable. Again, what am I highlighting here? Morgan Olson has the platform to be able to give their customers that single source of the truth, being JD Edwards, right? The pricing is coming from JD Edwards. That VIN number verification, again, a single source of the truth. They've had great success through this website. Launched about 4 years ago. They've been able to double their e-commerce sales almost on a year-over-year basis. Again, about a 500% increase since those 4 years ago. And really, the people who have benefited here, number one, are the customers, because they can buy parts at 3 a.m. in the morning. They can buy parts without having to wait on a 20-minute phone call to talk to a customer service agent. And then additionally, it's the customer service agents, the ones that have also benefited, right? Because that call volume has been significantly decreased. All right, the last example that I want to cover today is another organization called Sennheiser. They manufacture high fidelity audio equipment, everything that has to do with audio engineering. Been doing that for a long time, based in Germany. And they had a really interesting requirement, right? The primary way that they distribute their products are through a network of dealers. And a lot of these dealers are very small mom and pop type stores that place a couple of orders a month. Sennheiser needed a way to automate some of those sales order processes, but also providing a customer experience to those dealers that was very positive and that would strengthen the customer relationship. So Sennheiser reached out to SmarterCommerce, kind of began explaining their need. Their strategy really, again, focused on providing this dealer network with self-service capabilities. And they were also very aware that their sales team had to be an important part of the mix. Remember, I mentioned earlier that a lot of times sales teams see an e-commerce platform as a threat, because now customers can just log online and place orders on there instead of giving them a call, and therefore their commission kind of gets hurt, right? Sennheiser was very aware of this, and so they included their sales teams as part of the strategy for deploying the e-commerce portal, these dealer portals, right? The way that they did that is by allowing sales representatives to log on to the same dealer portal, select a customer to work on behalf of, and then be able to complete a sales order on behalf of a customer. They were involving the sales team. They also had some pretty global requirements. For example, Sennheiser needed this portal to run in over 20 countries, in the US, in Canada, and because they're a German-based brand, they've got operations all over Europe. So because they had all these dealers, they needed this portal to run in all those different countries. Additionally, they needed the portal to run in 10 different currencies to accommodate for over 10 different languages. And then they had another pretty demanding requirement. And that requirement was that these dealers, when they log into the portal, would only be able to see the catalogs that correspond to the product lines that they have authorization to purchase. What am I saying? Not all these dealers have the opportunity to purchase all the products from Sennheiser. Obviously, those are negotiated and kind of vary on a customer by customer basis. And so instead of presenting all of that complexity to the customer and allowing them to potentially make a purchasing mistake, what Sennheiser said is, hey, look, SmarterCommerce, we need you guys to find a way to only give customers access to the catalogs and products that they have authorization to purchase. Well, because SmarterCommerce is integrated with JD Edwards, we were able to do that no problem, driven by category codes, right? So now Sennheiser has a portal where a customer from Germany, from France, from the United Kingdom, from Canada, from Spain, from the US can log into a portal. The minute that they get to the portal, they're getting the portal in their language. When they log in, they're looking at products and information and catalog that corresponds to the specific products and catalogs that they have authorization to purchase. And again, Sennheiser has been running this portal for over 10 years. It's been very successful, and they continue to deploy it in additional countries across the globe. What am I saying here? I'm pointing out that Sennheiser knew the needs of the customer. They understood that customers want to be able to see the products that they can purchase. They don't want to have that mixed up with products that they are not supposed to purchase. And they also needed to find a way to make that shopping experience optimized for the customer in the language of the customer, in the currency of the customer, and at the same time also realized that, hey, you know what, we need to bring our sales team into this whole process. Again, what we've seen here is really 3 different JD Edwards organizations, 3 different B2B organizations, all managing e-commerce strategies in a different way. And the difference between all these organizations is about as different as their industry. It's about as different as their customers. There's not one way to do this, right? The key here is that they're listening to the voice of a customer. And whatever it is that they're presenting to the customer, whatever pricing, inventory, validation of a VIN number, customer-specific product catalogs, branch or retail specific inventory information, the list goes on. Whatever information they're presenting to the customer needs to be the one source of the truth, reliable, trustworthy information. And the only way for them to do that is to leverage that real-time connectivity to JD Edwards. So if we're going to take a step back here and sort of summarize some of the key, takeaways, let's say, on how B2B organizations can deliver a winning e-commerce strategy, let's just kind of summarize them in a couple of different families, if you will, of reasons here, right? The first I'm going to call transparency. That obviously that's something that's valued in today's society. And when I say transparency, I'm talking about knowing your customer. Knowing what your customers want in an e-commerce platform. That's really the first questions. Hey, what do our customers want in a digital commerce platform? We know we have to go in this direction. All the metrics are pointing in that direction. Most of your customers are already purchasing on an e-commerce platform. If not from you, probably from another vendor. So you have to ask the question, how do your customers want to use an e-commerce platform? And then the other thing in relation to transparency is knowing how they shop. Do you know the kinds of behaviors that your customers have when they're placing orders? Some of this can revolve around understanding the ordering needs that your customers really have, right? That's kind of the first step. And then also having access to that insight. So, hey, how often do they place repeat orders? What are the products that customers are ordering on a routine basis? What are the products that are really urgent for them to order that they don't want to wait to be on a phone call to place that order? And the list kind of goes on. Related to this item of transparency is also the idea of analytics. Your team probably has some level of analytics that they could see and analyze in terms of how products are bought, what items are repeat orders and things of that nature. And then a lot of your e-commerce strategy can be generated from this. I recall working with one organization where a lot of their customers were expressing frustration in waiting a long time on the phone to place a pretty routine order of replacement parts for the machine that they're running. Well, guess what? Knowing that information and getting analytics around that is going to drive the e-commerce strategy around what products you want to launch first through an e-commerce platform. The second family of reasons here I'm going to call reliability. And that really revolves around ensuring that the information that your buyers are presented with is accurate. Nobody likes to get to an e-commerce platform, find a price, find an order, place the order, only to then find out that the information was not reliable, that it was not accurate. That's a lose, right, for your customer. Ultimately, what it means is that the more that your customer realizes that, hey, this e-commerce platform, it's not actually that reliable, what they're going to do is pick up the phone and call customer service. And then customer service is going to get an earful, right? And ultimately, you're not going to realize the efficiency, one of the principal efficiencies of an e-commerce platform. And then the worst case scenario is obviously that the customer's frustration increases and they're more likely to go somewhere else, perhaps to one of your competitors. Again, that's a cutthroat nature of a lot of today's business, especially in the digital commerce space. The third item that I'm going to mention here is convenience. An absolutely critical element to an e-commerce strategy is making it easy for your customers to do business with you. It's got to be easy. Nobody likes to work on a clunky e-commerce platform, right? Everybody's been there, whether it's, renewing your tag on some sort of an online portal that's clunky and confusing and has all these funny rules to it. It's just not a great experience. It's not convenient, right? Your customers want to be able to interact with an e-commerce platform that is cutting edge, that is intuitive, that has a user experience that's similar to the Amazon.com that they're shopping from on a regular basis. The key around convenience is empowering your customers with the right information at the right time, with the right tools for them to do what they want to do online, whether it's find a product, check inventory, check pricing, download an invoice, pay an invoice, whatever the case might be. Give your customers those tools and make it easy for them to use. And then the fourth item here revolves around personalization, right? One of the key things that we talked about as we distinguished B2C customers from B2B customers is that B2B customers are complex. They have a long history with you. They don't want to be treated like another generic customer. They want their long history of a relationship with your organization to be reflected in the e-commerce platform. So what does that mean? It means that you're giving your customer personalized pricing, personalized product information. It means that you're giving them a catalog experience that aligns with the products that they're authorized to purchase, just like we saw with Sennheiser. They want to see their personalized shipping terms, their account history, catalog selection we mentioned. Hey, if I have a 10-year history of a relationship with your organization, I want to be able to see my order history back 5 years or 2 years or 1 year. All of that kind of plays into this idea of personalization. Remember, your B2B customers are very precious. They're important, and you want to maintain that relationship as personalizable or as personal as possible. And then the last thing I'll mention here before we kind of transition over to Q&A or discussion or any comments that the team here might want to add is around trust, right? That's the last one. And I put that one at the bottom and I circle everything because trust really is the foundation of every relationship, right? I don't mean to get, Dr. Phil on everybody, and hopefully you guys aren't rolling your eyes, but you got to realize that at the core of every B2B relationship is trust. Your customers know that they can count on you. They've been counting on you for over 10 years, 15 years, whatever the case might be. You have to orient your e-commerce strategy around building trust into your customer relationships. Part of the way that you do that is by ensuring that you leverage transparency, reliability, convenience, personalization, and the list goes on. But that really needs to be at the bottom of the pile when it comes to priority, making sure that your customers can trust you. When you pick up the phone, when the salesperson shakes their hand, when they talk to a manager about an issue they're facing, and also they can trust you when they're interacting with your e-commerce website. So hopefully some of this information has been helpful to the team. Again, what's really not in question here is that B2B organizations, JD Edwards organizations, manufacturers and distributors need to start thinking about e-commerce. I mean, every single measurable metric is pointing in the direction that a lot of B2B buyers prefer buying online. They want to buy online. It's easier for them. And so hopefully some of these thoughts, some of these insights, some of these metrics and numbers that we've shared have helped the team understand a little bit more about what's involved in an e-commerce strategy. And then also realizing that, hey, there's a lot of different ways to do B2B successfully, right? We saw the example of Lindy, we saw the example of Sennheiser, we saw the example of Morgan Olson, and I can go on and on and on about so many other different SmarterCommerce customers that have found a way to leverage e-commerce in a successful way. The key message that we're communicating here in that over 20 years of doing business in the JD Edwards space, what we have come to realize is that the key to providing that outstanding customer experience in an e-commerce strategy is a single source of the truth. And you got to make that JD Edwards. JD Edwards has to stay the single source of truth for all your business data and all your business processes. And the only way you can do that is by selecting a tool, selecting a partner that is knowledgeable in JD Edwards and that has a real-time JD Edwards connectivity. So with that said, I'd be really interested in talking with any of the audience. If you guys do have any e-commerce related needs, e-commerce related projects in the short to mid or long term, hey, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me. You can feel free to call me. I've got my information online as well. If you prefer to send me, a letter, we can get in touch that way. Please reach out, start the conversation. We'd love to connect with you guys at whatever stage of the process that you're at. Maybe you're just starting to learn what e-commerce is, and it's probably something that you'll do in the next 2 to 3 years. Reach out. If you guys are in the middle of an e-commerce project and you're having all kinds of challenges, hey, reach out and connect with us. Again, we'd love to help you guys. So with that said, I'll stop yapping. I think we've got about 10 minutes left on today's session. A big thank you to the whole team that participated. Appreciate everybody's attention. I know it's scarce these days. That said, if you have any questions or any items that you want to talk about on the chat, please go ahead and type that in. I'll go ahead and tackle that. I'll have my co-host Fermin Rodriguez also tackle that as well. Beyond that, we'll stay on here for a few minutes to see if there's any questions. If there's not, we appreciate everybody's attention. Again, your involvement. Encourage you guys to reach out, through whatever means is most convenient to you guys. Really interested in talking about e-commerce and what that means for JD Edwards with the audience. Great.